Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. And I want to take a few moments to introduce our panel and to give some shout outs to a few supporters of this exhibition. I also want to let y'all know this is a great crowd to tell. ACA is hiring 3 employees in the next month. So if you know somebody who is interested in the arts and wants to be part of this fabulous team, work in this building with our lovely team, send them to our website. Under careers, there's 3 different positions. There's a front desk, well, there might be 2 front desk positions, but anyway, send them to the website. There's front desk, there's a marketing assistant, as well as a visual arts assistant that I need so badly. I need somebody to come help out and offer their talents to us and build our team. So anyway, I thought this would be a great group to tell, to get the word out. I think we've got a few weeks on it, and please encourage anybody that you think would be interested in it to apply. So thank you for that. All right, so my name is Jaik Faulk. I'm the Visual Arts Director here at Acadiana Center for the Arts, and this is a panel of 6 black artists who are community leaders. I mean, 6 black artists. 4 black artists, 5. I can't count anymore.
6.
There was supposed to be one more, but okay. 5 black artists who are community leaders. They wear many hats, and we wanted to give a venue for them to talk about their experiences and to sort of give an insight into the world they navigate in, what it's like to create work, but also organize folks and to run a gallery, to have an arts organization, to be a filmmaker, to own Attakapas Collective right down the road. I was very inspired by what Erica Fox is doing right next door, offering a space for BIPOC artists and crafts persons to offer their goods and their the work that they make. I thought she would be a perfect person to organize a panel and to lead a discussion. Also, I feel it pertinent to mention that we are on ancestral lands of the Attakapas and Nishak. And also, I want to thank our host committee members who are here today, Adam and Angela Morrison, as well. Yeah, give them a round of applause, please. Thank you. Women of Wisdom, who are another big round of applause. Mr. Derek Baptiste and Alicia Johnson. There we go. This panel was made possible by a rebirth grant from the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. This exhibition was made possible by the Haney Family Foundation, Lafayette Travel, as well as the Lieutenant Governor's Office, and many, many, many other sort of support groups and networks. And you need to grab one of these brochures and look at all the folks who supported this, and then read the 2 essays that were written about Eugene Martin, and it'll help sort of clarify some of what you're seeing in here. Last thing about this is that today is not the last day. So if you want to come back in the next 2 weeks, you'll be able to see these works because it's going to extend a little bit longer. Okay, that was it. Okay. And finally, I want to thank AOC, who's filming today and have these lovely mics out to capture this discussion that you'll be able to see on YouTube later after they kind of put it up. Okay. So I'm going to introduce our lovely panelists. We have Bryant Benoit. He's an artist and owner of the Bryant Benoit Gallery, Indigenous Art. He says of his art, "My perception of my culture is expressed through my work. I tell stories of love, pain, family, and spirituality." And they were saying earlier that Bryant does these kind of informal discussions all the time at his gallery. So put that on your radar, follow him on social media, and get in the know, especially if you enjoy these discussions. So thank you, Bryant. Kelly Jackson is a filmmaker, cultural historian, and director of the Cane River Film Festival. She is currently in post-production of her film Resurrection Fern, a film that charts the incredible life and times of Melrose Plantation matriarch Marie-Thérèse Coin, a free Creole woman who by 1792 had built a robust empire by growing, harvesting, and exporting bear grease, tobacco, and indigo. And so follow her, and you'll hear more about the path of this film and when it'll be released and any other special events that she's putting on. We have Miss Leah Porter, who most of y'all, I'm sure, know. Movement artist, founder, and artistic director of Fire Expressions Performing Arts Conservatory, co-creator of The Creole Nutcracker, a Southern reimagining of the classic Christmas tale and theater production. She is also director and owner of Park Village, also who does a lot of talks monthly that you should join in on. It's a community art center and collective space that supplies resources for empowering creatives of color. And then last but not least, Cory Stewart is a Lafayette-based artist, film director, and comedy writer who uses his art to exemplify the lack of representation of the African-American community in Acadiana. Stewart is the founder of Acadiana Black and the designer of the Acadiana Black Pride flag. He has made multiple short films and continues to explore concepts of racial representation and personal identity in both physical and digital forms. And he is also a recent candidate for the Columbia Film School in New York City, graduate school. So one of the things that I always harp on him about is that go do your thing and then make sure you come back and you bring some good stuff this way. You can't leave us all alone. And that might be something we talk about more in the panel discussion. And then Erica, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure.
Okay, I'll leave you to that. Yes. Just so I can get off this microphone and let you do your thing. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all so very much for being here, being a part of this discussion. It means the world, not only to the panelists, to myself, even to ACA, because we know that they have become very great partners in artisans' plight to get our art out to the world. So we're just very humbled and grateful for all of you being here. My name is Erica Fox. I am a singer and a songwriter and a handmade artisan. I work in various mediums, from making jewelry, writing songs, but have always been in a creative network of people. And I see on a daily basis just the hard work that goes into doing what you see these people have done. It's not easy, and we wanted to have a platform not only to celebrate them, but to hopefully gain more advocates and allies in you all, so that y'all can also continue spreading the word that there is incredible talent here, not just people of color, but just people who are passionate about what they do. And so we thank y'all very, very much. So I have a little cheat sheet. I didn't want to miss out anything, but this conversation is going to be very casual. So if anyone wants to chime in on a particular question, please do so. We ask that if you can, to hold the questions till the end, and then we'll also take questions from you all as well. So, as we stated earlier, we have 4 amazing artisans in different platforms, and we were very intentional about kind of taking the creme de la creme, if you will, from different various backgrounds. And the topic of this discussion was Black artists as community leaders. And Jake and I, the first thing that kind of came was in talking to some of them, we kind of begrudgingly take on that role because I think for most of us that was not our intent to be seen as leaders in the community. We were following our heart and our passions. We saw gaps and opportunities and we kind of went after it. But there's a lot that goes into being considered a leader. So, Bryant, if you would start off the conversation, how do you feel about even being considered or called a community leader based off of what you do?
I take it as a compliment. I guess we all try in our field to perform at our best. And so when you get recognized for the things that you're doing, it gives you the sense that, okay, you're inspiring someone, so it makes you feel like, okay, you're doing your job as a person, and then the leader comes as being a person. You know? Gotcha. So as an artist, as a creative person, you're already kind of labeled as unique, so it's not too hard to kind of walk alone. But when you start to see others saying, hey, that's nice, or they pick up their head and says, we appreciate what you're doing. It gives you that inspiration to keep going a little further. So it's good. Thank
you for that. How about you, Cory? Do you see yourself as a community leader in what you're doing?
People tell me that. That question's interesting for me because I remember doing a talk with the Ernest Gaines Center at the university, just kind of around the same subject. And Acadiana Black, I started Acadiana Black right in the middle of all the protests and really hard time for us, like race relations in our country, right? And I brought up my answer of like, for me, I'm very proud to have created Acadiana Black, the amount of work that we've done, the representation that it's brought to certain areas of Lafayette. But I felt bad because my mother and my parents just naturally are concerned for me, any kind of backlash, because that is a public figure, public company, and some people really aren't about that. And I was at most of the protests, waving the flag loud and proud, and they're scared for my safety in regards of any counter protest or what if something does go down with the police. So it's very fulfilling, and it's like you said, I did it because I felt like it was missing. It's not that I was looking to be a leader, it was just looking to find a place in what I can do to contribute back to the community here. And it's like, yeah, it feels good, but on the same time, it's like I'm picking up the rifle because no one else before me did. And so it's a little bit of a bittersweet feeling at times.
You made a point that you saw an opportunity, and I think Leah is probably a great example of someone who has probably been all over the world and seen things and saw an opportunity. But was community leader one of the titles that you anticipated?
I'm going to use the mic because I'm very soft-spoken by nature. No, community leader was nowhere in my head. It was only artist, only mover, only educator. I'm recently now starting to embrace the idea of being a community leader. And I think understanding the amount of responsibility that comes into being an artist, being an educator, and doing the work that we do, it is a lot of responsibility. And so embracing that idea of being a community leader pushes you to be better. Because I think the idea of shying away from saying, I'm not a community leader, you're not able to show up as the individual that the community needs you to be. So I feel like when you really, truly embrace the idea of being a community leader, you're able to walk into that position really with an understanding of trying to really propel your community forward through the work that you do. So I think embracing it has helped me a lot. But originally, I have not thought of myself as a community leader. And it's still kind of hard. It's still kind of, you're still like, okay, maybe so. You wake up today, yes, I'm a community leader today.
Go in and out. And you, how do you feel about being considered a community leader in your
I
field?
laughed when you told me I was a community leader.
See, we all kind of like, what?
Community leader?
Right.
And like, I'm right there with everybody else. That's not the thing on your list. You're not trying to lead anybody anywhere. You're just doing something that's in your heart that you're passionate about, and you want to bring it to your community. And what I came out here from California, I'm not native here, but I found my Matwire family of the Melrose Plantation, so I wanted to make a film about it. So before I moved here, I had a little book this lady gave me off the airplane, and she's like, take this on your journey, and write down the people that you meet, and you'll kind of. And so when I got here, people were, you have to have intent. And so people were like, oh, you need to know the senator so-and-so, oh, you need to know the lieutenant governor, you need to know the. I'm like, oh, what's their name again? Oh, okay. I'm like, I still have that book to this day, and I have their names, and as I, with intent, found out when they were coming to Natchitoches, I'm in Natchitoches, I was like, oh, the governor's coming over. Oh, I'm going to be over there, the lieutenant governor's coming, I'm going to be over there. And I wouldn't even let them leave the door. I was like, oh, they're leaving. I get in front of them like, hello, my name is Kelly Jackson. I'm here, I'm doing this, And a lot of, sometimes people trying to usher me away, kind of move out the way, Kelly. I'm like, nobody's going anywhere until I tell them who I am and why I'm here.
I love that.
Period, Governor, hi, now, boom, And he's like, give her the card. And in that, I became, the governor knows me, the lieutenant governor knows me. I work with Louisiana Entertainment, one of my top sponsors, along with the lieutenant governor I produced the Cane River Film Festival. Being in the business for over 30 years in Los Angeles and Hollywood, when my friend's a stuntman, he's like, Kelly, if you go to Louisiana, the business is starting out there. You will be a leader if you go out there, but you'll be the little fish in the big pond kind of thing. And then when I'm in LA, I'm just a little fish flapping around because everybody's doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I said, you know what? It's gonna be hard because I have 7 brothers and sisters to leave my entire family. But I'm like, look, I'm not married, I don't have no kids, this is about the best time to go. So I left, I just packed up my stuff. I never thought I'd have that journey to where you just pack up your car. I didn't know anybody in Louisiana. I just picked up the phone to the Melrose and said, hey, I want to make a movie about this and I'm coming. So sometimes you just got to step out on your own limb and just do it, because that's life.
That leads us to this next question. It seems that all of you, in one way or another, wanted to see something that maybe wasn't there, and you made it happen. Does anyone have just a personal, maybe, example of that, where you saw opportunity, whether it's to open up your dance studio, your own art gallery, making a flag that speaks to and resonates to many? Who would like to talk on that topic of making a lane when there may have not been one?
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit on that. Being an artist myself since I was young, consider myself a young artist when I was younger, and then an emergent artist, I did a lot of traveling outside of Lafayette, outside of Louisiana. And so I studied at Ailey in New York, and I was in DC a lot at Howard University, and going to these different cities that just had thriving art communities, and even in high school, going to the International Association of Blacks in Dance Conference and being around all of these kids that went to performing arts high schools, and then come back to Lafayette and, you go to your one little ballet class a day, a weekend. That was it. But it was like wanting to create that same culture that the kids had and the same opportunities that those kids had in the bigger cities, wanting to do that here, particularly in classical and contemporary styles of dance, and just bringing that whole culture, like even down to having live music in our classes, like our modern classes for years, since probably year 2, have been done to live hand percussion. Mr. Herb Pucci Green plays for us. And so to have that, even that small little, portion of having live music in a dance class, that is different
Absolutely.
than dancing to music that is great, but it just completely does something different. And now my kids are used to it. So when we go into environments where there's no live music, it's like, wait, what? What's going on? But I know for FE Conservatory, that was the vision. It was creating a space of culture, a space of excellence, immersed and engulfed in classical and contemporary styles of dance, and really particularly wanted to introduce young Black kids in Lafayette to that, and give them that opportunity and not have to wait like I did until I was a little older to experience that. Because when you leave Lafayette in Louisiana, that is the norm. It's the norm for a lot of kids. So, yeah.
Anyone else like to speak on that?
Well, for me, it was about, well, my background, to give y'all my background, I went to USL and studied architecture. And for me, my father was in construction, so it was in my background to do construction. So as I started to take the classes at USL, what it taught me was it showed you how to be more of a creative than an artist, because creative minds is for me, it's the threshold of the imagination. And so when I started to take the design classes, we read a lot of poetry, and then we had to make 3D objects from what we read. So you actually taking words, internalizing it into a 3D form, adding color, texture, and giving it reason to manifest or to exist. And so as a young person, it was really odd for me to think that way, but it opened up Pandora's box. So for me to look at this art is home for me, because it's abstract, but it's textural, it's collage, it's art. So for me, I'm a collage artist because I take images, photos, and different backgrounds and collage them together, because even though you think everything is different, there's a fine line where everything actually is the same, but you just have to find what meshes. That story, that long story, led me to say, well, when I started to create art, or every time you went to show art as a self-taught artist, even though I went to USL and had a background in architecture, I didn't have an art background, so it was kind of hard to show your work and give up 50% of da-da-da-da-da. As a young artist, that's a shock. So I said, well, if I have my own space, then I can have my own space to create. So I had an opportunity that just fell on my shoulders downtown. I opened up my first shop, and I had a space where I can create my own art. And what that gave me the ability was, it gave me a space to create a space, so that more of people like myself that is walking Lafayette streets, that's just amazingly creative, can just come in and be inspired. So I said, well, it's not about me, so the space is about my art. So it's just a space for it to just shine. And so I just put it in there, and I was in the background. And I really didn't like to talk, so it was just about the art. But what I noticed, that it created a space for people that I didn't even know to just walk in and just want to tell me their story and show me their art, open up their phone, and I was like, wow. And I said, yeah, but so it gave me the ability to create spaces, and what I wanted to do even more was give them the space to speak, because art is not just what you see on the wall, but they have a story to tell. But that's the community that we love. And so when you come to my art studio, you'll feel the energy that I put into the space, you'll feel the art. But most importantly, I do want you to ask me a question so that you can hear the story that's oozing from me. Because we are the community, so we want you, we are the magnets that's pulling y'all are the electricity, so we're pulling y'all in to ask us, what is it that we represent? And when you come in, you'll hear the stories, you'll see the stories. My art is collage, so I tell the stories of Louisiana culture, or jazz, is music, food, or whatever it is, because that's the nature of who we are as a people. Mm-hmm. And so when you can connect on a level with a space and the art that speaks to the people, because when no matter who walks into the door, the first thing they feel is what they feel. It's not what I feel. They get a feel of, oh, what is this I'm feeling? So then that's their first communication with themselves. And then they just, oh, wow, what is that? what are you doing? And then they look at where are you from? I'm from Harmony Street, Washington Heights, on the north side of Lafayette, Louisiana.
Come on now.
And then the communication just opens up. So that's why I created the space that I have. So y'all come check me out.
Cory, could you speak to us a little bit about the unglorious part of being a creative or working as a creative? Has there been any challenges or that you'd like to share? Share the good and the bad.
I think just being an artist in general, you do spend a lot of time by yourself, working, creating stuff by yourself. Particularly if you're very ambitious, too. You have to be very motivated,
Yes.
and that drive has to be high.
Absolutely.
And that all sounds great, to be motivated and driven and all that on paper. Like that is a great attribute to have, but in actuality, that means extremely, extremely late nights, doing a lot of things you don't want to do, and just having to push through a lot of tough times. It can be very exhausting for that. And I would say that's definitely one of the unglamorous parts about being a creative. Another aspect would be sometimes everyone's just not cool with what you do. You know, you putting in all that hard work, you're doing all this, and for me, I have physical numbers that I can monitor how well things are doing. That might be different for the rest of y'all, but like with Acadiana Black and it being a shop and the goal to donate to local Black charities is that I can see what items are selling. I can see how many stickers and where they're going and how far my reach is going. So that's very comforting. But, you know, I get one KATC article written about me and I can go into the comment section and see how the other side is thinking about what the flag represents and what's going on. So, and that's like, you know, them thinking whatever about me, my family wanting to fight them because they don't know, having to deal with all that stuff. So, like the more public art can get, the more controversy can come with it. So I would say that's one of the drawbacks with being a creative as well too.
Agreed. And I feel an opportunity to kind of chime in because although I'm an artist in myself, I feel like I represent several others in our collective. We're over 30 artisans, BIPOC, second act seniors, if you will, people who have retired and wanted to pursue a passion. We even got some youth artisans in the shop. But what's very interesting about what you just mentioned, one of the main reasons we came together is because we're tired of kind of working in our own power. We knew we were stronger together as a unit. Going to several pop-ups every weekend can be tiresome. And like you said, you put yourself out there to be judged and for folks to have trolling comments sometimes, but we do it because we love what we do and it's who we are. But we wanted a space where we could always showcase our work whenever we wanted so that we weren't always beating ourselves up every weekend to go do a pop-up in hopes that someone would show up. So we have a space now where you can come in anytime and see it. But that's probably one of our biggest challenges, just getting the word out so that they know we're here, and we're not going anywhere, but that we love what we do and we want to have a equal footing in a space. I have to also go to a comment, I don't know if she's here, but there was one comment in the comments, I don't want to give her too much attention, but one person had made a comment about why do we have to have forums like this that speak to our Blackness. And I kind of want to talk about that because do you feel like we need to, or do you feel like it's an equal footing now and we could just be artists? Or do people see you as still an artist who is Black? Anybody want to speak on that?
Well, there's a lot in that, you know. Look, my stepfather, when I was 12 years old, is white. So I was raised by him. So it's like growing up with a single mom at like 21, there's 3 of us, just her and us 3 kids. And then when I'm 12, I have a new dad, So it's like learning, when I was looking at Malcolm X's book with my stepdad, and he's like, I wasn't the one, I wasn't there, I didn't do anything,
Don't blame
and I'm like,
me.
I'm just, and Booker T. Washington, I'm just really interested. I didn't know about these people, I didn't know the fullness of them. And so books were around the house, and I was just reading them, and he's like, I wouldn't do anything. So I was like, wow, why are you taking it so seriously? I'm just learning, I'm educating myself. And that's kind of what got me out here. I ran across the Matoyer story, and I didn't know anything about my culture, my heritage, Creole. I didn't know anything but Creole, Cajun food, I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And I said, so I was looking at the Facebook, I saw the Matoyers, I was like, well, this is a very odd name, it's French, and these people must be my relatives, and my grandma never told me about them, my dad never told me about them, and that's when I discovered my roots. And to me, it's different than, labeling myself as a color, as in finding my roots. And these are the first people that were born to the New World, New France. This was not America. This was France. And these were French citizens. And so with that, it was like, I felt like Cinderella. I came alive. It's like I called my daddy and I was like, Daddy, how come you never told me about our family heritage? And he's like, what story? I'm like, oh my God, how do you don't know this, Yes. And that's what brought me to Louisiana. That's what brought me to Natchitoches, a place I never heard of. I couldn't pronounce the name. But I was like, there's something about that red dirt. I don't know what it is, but I gotta go there. It's like all these people become famous when they come there. Kate Chopin, Clementine Hunter, all these people from the Melrose. And I said, something's going on with the water, the dirt, something's over there. So I came to chase my roots, and I remember a woman, I had gotten in an accident, so I was trying to tell the police about it, and the black woman goes, she says to me, oh, well, you consider yourself? I said, well, I consider myself Creole. And the one goes, oh, she's just confused, she don't know. And I said, I'm not confused at all. And the one lady's like, well, you're black. And I'm just like, okay, there's a bunch of things that make me up. Mm-hmm. My ancestors are from La Rochelle, France. Mm-hmm. That is not gonna go away. I have other ancestors I'm sure came from Africa. And I'm sure I have indigenous family members here. So all of those people, and probably some Spanish up in there too. There was, Chinese. They were all in Louisiana and mixing around, So that made up the Creole people. So for me to just label myself as just only black, then that's telling my other ancestors that I'm gonna deny you too.
So when you're creating, you're not working necessarily from a black perspective. It's to just connect to all of who you are.
To all of me, because when I'm also an artist, and so at one point I was doing African mud cloth replication. Sometimes I put a little bit of my Native American artwork in there. It's a different structure, it's a different type of work. And then I just kind of abstracted out of my own self. But French, we have our own. You see my fleur-de-lis, that represents France. And so it's a culmination of all of these different cultures that make me up as I am. So if I just say I'm a black person, then I feel like I'm telling my Matoyer family, like, I'm turning my back on you, I'm turning my back on your culture. My Native American, I'm turning my back on you and your culture, when all of you guys were born, created me. Mm-hmm. So I'm all of that.
Would anyone else like to speak on this topic? Do you intentionally create from an Afrocentric perspective, or is that how you're perceived?
Sorry if I'm talking.
No, go ahead. Please do, Cory.
It's so funny that you bring that up, because I'm kind of exploring almost the exact same thing. My family has told, both my mom and my dad told me about just distant indigenous relatives that we had, and the relationship between black people and indigenous communities is kind of a complicated one in certain areas, in a lot of areas. You have had like native tribes that fought for the Confederacy, that owned slaves, but were also ones that were, black people went on the Trail of Tears as well too. So this idea that we're just black is a very American thing, because it's a persistent idea of stripping us of our heritage or any kind of land, ownership, which is kind of something that I wanted to tackle with Acadiana Black, of like, you can be Black and proud to be from Acadiana, and that's what the Acadiana Black Pride flag is about. So I just this week started like an ancestry tree going down the line to find those indigenous ancestors and thereafter, because it's going to be hard for a lot of us to go back to what tribe in coastal West Africa are we come from. And as time goes on, it'll be just as hard to find whatever tribe that we come from. Like, I comically think my journey started with me looking around my family and be like, why are we all red? Like, my specific family, we're the darkest of it, but it's like there's clearly something here that none of us are talking about. And I don't think, like, as Black Americans, like, it's by our own design of like, you're just Black. I think that's something that we've just been taught and programmed to do, of like, we have to cling on to Blackness for our own sake, because that's what we were told to do. Like, you're Black, you're Black, that is your thing. And slowly, each generation kind of brings on its new take of like taking ownership of that. So, you know, not just Black, you're Black Americans, and like where you're from, you know, like either from the South or Detroit, Chicago, even further back with like what part of Africa you come from. So I think you're going to see a lot more Black people also trying to trace their indigenous roots as well, because that is important. Right, that doesn't go away.
Well,
I mean,
the name is Benoit Gallery Indigenous Arts for a reason.
Okay.
Because it encompasses exactly what we're talking about. It's an umbrella, because if you're indigenous to this land, then you know who and where you come from. So my art is about Creole culture, Black culture, indigenous culture, all culture, because it's under the same umbrella. And for me, my perception can only come from that, because that's who I am. That's what's running through my veins. The blood, you see the redness on my skin. When the sun comes out, I get darker, darker red. My father is very dark red, like yourself. So when you start to understand your indigenous background, you understand that Black is a title underneath the indigenous status, which the Europeans had to come into and fall underneath that status also. So we can go back to the Articles of Confederation to prove those points. We can look at the 5 tribes that was on those Articles of Confederation, because that does ties it back to the land. And that's very important. Where my gallery sits now, it's property that's been in my family for a very long time. My uncle owned a TV shop and has been there for over 40, 50 years. And he held that 2 lots on University for so long because we understood our indigenous status, that we keep our property. So even though he fell ill, you pay the bills because you keep the land in our family. Our family lost a lot of lands because of that. The title changed from Black to African American so you start to understand your status in America. When your status keeps changing over the course of who's presidents and so you start to understand your rights as a person. You start to understand your rights as an indigenous person. So my rights, my art reflects that. And so that's why when you come and you start to see Native Americans in there, I say, yeah, we're indigenous people. Where is that coming? Where is your tribe? I say, we're not a tribe. We're a people. We're communities. Tribes is what the colonizers gave you, tribes, and you go there. But I'm not a tribe. If you have a tribe, then go find your tribe. But my family's been here forever. So we find my family. You find who you are. So that's the story I tell. That's the angle I take. That's the history that's on my face. And that's the history that's on the walls. And so when you choose to come to Benoit Gallery and choose to invest your time, your money, your culture, your love into an art piece, you get just that, your culture back.
Leah, you were very intentional as to where your center sits, which is very predominantly African American, was having a Black presence, if you will, with the people you interacted with your dance. Was that something that you knew you wanted to do?
Yeah, I was very intentional. I'm a little different, but I do consider myself as a Black artist. And I do use my space, my creativity as an opportunity to celebrate our contributions as African Americans. Our concert this year for the conservatory is we're celebrating and saluting African American composers and their contribution to the music world, to the film world. And I want my kids to learn about African American composers. I want them to learn about their history. And so I do strategically or intentionally celebrate the contributions of African Americans here in the United States through my arts. With Park Village, the Community Arts Center, that was very intentional in a sense of creating a space in the heart of an African American community and making it accessible. I do feel like arts in multiple cities, the arts is normally located in your downtown areas, rightfully so. But I do believe in a quote by the amazing W.E.B. Du Bois, and he said, "For us, near us, by us, and about us." And so thinking of all four of those, near us, it has to be in our community. It has to be in reach for us, and made accessible. So when starting Park Village, those were the four things that I was thinking about: for us, by us, near us, and about us. Because I feel like we have to tell our stories. We have to create those spaces for us to be able to tell our stories. So I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. And then if you wouldn't mind speaking even on the Black Nutcracker, taking what would be considered a more European perspective and giving it a cultural spin. Could you tell us more about that?
Yes, so I have to say, with all transparency, Creole Nutcracker is something that was a thought, but in reality, it wasn't an idea of wanting to take this, this production that is predominantly European and put an African American spin. It wasn't from that perspective. It was really just a cool idea that I thought about.
It it really
is. Sometimes as an artist, there's no deep thought or, deep connection. Sometimes it's just
art.
Just a great idea.
Yeah.
And something that you just kind of, not say stumble on, and I thought it was a cool idea. I was like, it would be so cool, because there are so many renditions of the Nutcracker. There's South African Nutcracker. In New York, there's a rock and roll Nutcracker. Debbie Allen does the hot chocolate Nutcracker. There's so many different Nutcrackers all over the world. And I thought it would be so unique to take the Louisiana culture, because I do feel like it's so rich. It's a culture that people around the world love, gravitate to, and enjoy. And I thought it would be really neat and cool to infuse that with dance, with ballet, all these great and amazing attributes that the Nutcracker have that I love, because I love the Nutcracker ballet. But, give it a little spice.
Exactly.
a little flavor. So, and then from once, because it was a thought for probably about 4 to 5 years. Once we really sat down and thought about it, then we were very intentional.
And I'd like to speak on that. So it took up to 5 years before anything manifested, or for us to be able to go and sit and watch it.
Yeah,
it took that long.
It took 5 years. It was a thought. It's something that I had told my mom and my sister in creativity, who I call her Ms. Jasmine Jones, who's also the co-creator. She came to me and she was like, you know what? My mother-in-law was talking about doing like a Louisiana Christmas show. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, me and my mom been talking about doing like a Creole Nutcracker and, taking the Nutcracker and infusing it with Louisiana culture. And we're like, okay, yeah. And just never came back up, and then every year we would talk about it. We would talk about it. And in 2018, in July of 2018, was like, why don't we do auditions on August 28th? Why not? Right. Let's go for it. And we did auditions on August 28th. No script, no choreography. And so year one was literally after we auditioned the kids. From September to November, we were building the show. And I think we really were leaning on the idea and the thought that we're very, we believe in our skills. because we've been doing this for quite some time, produced a lot of shows, so we knew that we could do it. But once we got into production, it was like all of these different ideas. And then once you start researching, it's like, oh God, we got to put this, And so even still today, we're expanding and perfecting and adding and changing. We're going to be doing all original music for the show. I mean, like we have, even potentially a tour in Louisiana. So we have so many great ideas for the Creole Nutcracker, and it's exciting. And we can't wait.
I love that.
Artwork, we're going to talk about that.
Turn it into a film. Hey, we got a whole...
So we did do a documentary in 2020,
right.
COVID year. 2020.
Was that because of COVID?
It was because of COVID. COVID pushed us to pivot. And I think COVID pushed a lot of creatives to pivot, a lot of people to pivot.
Can we speak on that? Would someone like to speak about having to be flexible in your creative process or your work, or having to adjust, if you will?
Fell off the planet Earth because my film festival, I think it was like my second or my third, and I'm just, I'm gonna have a film festival. I was doing Marie Therese Coin days, and then my mentors, I always get to have a mentor, and he said, what else you want to do? I said, well, I want to I want to do my film festival. So I'm thinking I'm on the second one, and it's 4 days before the thing, and you're watching, you gotta watch the world, what's going on, and then it was like, Kelly, hi, this is the Lieutenant Governor's office. Shut it down, and I'm like, what? So I had to shut the whole thing down, and
money was invested?
Monitoring the COVID to see if I could find a window and split my little self right up in there, and I sure did. And so I said, to myself, I don't care if 5 people come to this film festival. I'm getting to number 5. I'm just going to stay focused. And so I did. I just finished number 5 in March. So I think I had, I did that one. And I said, well, you know what? Since I can be in March, I put it in July. Since my birthday's in July, so I made myself a birthday party. Kept it moving. So it wasn't that many people. But the next year, so I kept that July. And then I came back again on March. So I did 2 that year, actually, because I wanted to stay on track. So that was really difficult, completely, and especially you're still monitoring COVID because, everybody's mask and sanitized stuff, everything is, don't touch me, don't hug me, it's like, oh, how do I even have a festival where people are getting together and they're all afraid for their lives of each other? This is making me cry. I wanted to be in full-on depression. I'm at my friends. I was like, oh, well, what am I going to do now? Everything that I seem to do is shut down. How am I going to live, And something just said, just keep pushing. And even if you don't have the crowd, just keep pushing through it, And so through the whole year, I stayed in the house and stayed away from everybody so that I stayed safe. And then when I was able to come around people, then I had all the tools for them that they needed to feel comfortable, plenty of space for them to gather around, and 2 could sit over there, and do it like that. And this was the first year where we were all comfortable to be back and loving and hugging each other and dancing and just being like, okay, we're all right, we survived, and let's keep moving. And it was like, Kelly, congratulations, you did an awesome one. But you don't see what's going on behind the scenes. And what I'm saying is that a lot of times we just have events and we have a date and here's a flyer. But we don't know something like COVID is going to hit. It's going to change the whole game on you. And now you just have all this pretty flyer. You have to now redo it and find another date and try and reschedule everybody to fit back into that date. And then come again, and then your sponsors are falling off because, they're like, well, how are you going to have one, So you're losing money, you're putting your own money in it. And then you have the emotional crisis of family members, friends passing away, And so it was like, how am I going to do this without my best friend? I tell her about everything. And now she's gone. And so it's just like, I don't think that I was prepared for the emotions. And how am I going to press through with, in lack? But I was thankful that the SBA came through with the PPP loans or whatever you are. I was like, hi, I'm going to fill it out. And I didn't get a big one, but I got enough of a one that I can still survive to keep that being funneled with money. And that's what I was able to do, you know. But you got to keep your eye on the radar, because if something like that comes up and you're like, oh, really? Oh, let me fill this out. So then that way you can get that money and keep going.
So piggybacking off what you just said, where do you all find the intestinal fortitude to continue when things fall or seem to fall apart, or something stands in the way? How do you continue going as a creative?
I have no idea.
I have no idea.
I know for a person like myself, I create well under pressure.
I do too.
And COVID year was a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And a part of the conversation that we never really talked about is we're all creative entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
There's a creative side, but there's a business side.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and so I think for me, COVID, going through the COVID haze, as I called it, you really had to fight your way as the business owner to say, what am I going to do so I can suffice and I don't lose my business? Because there are so many people that lost their business and it is not coming back. So I was really thinking outside the box. How can I keep my kids engaged? How can we keep Creole Nutcracker going? Like, what are some things that we can do and put into place from a business aspect so we don't lose our business? As creatives, your business is your baby. Like you hold on to, there's so much sweat equity, there's so much, sleepless nights, sacrifices. And so you want to do everything you possibly can do to make sure that it's still functioning. And so creativity was there, but artistic creativity was out the door for me. I'm like, we have to create to survive.
You had to be resourceful.
Yes.
For me, it was, I got shut down because I had, my first gallery was downtown.
Downtown, right.
And so with COVID, when COVID first hit, everything was shut down. So I had, I had to move out. And so me and my wife, we moved everything out. So for me, it was everything shut down. Creativity shut down.
Right.
Everything shut down.
Right.
But in the midst of losing your business, we had to create to survive. And at that point, the building that I'm in now was old. It was my uncle, but it was a mess. And so everything was in a mess. So for COVID, I spent almost every day by myself, not by myself, my wife, my mom, cleaning that out, figuring out what I need to do. And slowly but surely, things just started to happen. I had some material. So COVID for me was a rebuilding, a restructuring, a reinstituting of my business side. My creative side went to sleep. He had to go to sleep because we was in survival mode. And I had to rebuild. And that's when the other aspect, my architectural side, so it's like, Brian, you're just a baby, what you gonna do? And I said, yeah, I got some old cypress wood, and I got some this and some that, and I just went to work, and some paint and some plaster, and I created a space, again, for me to survive. And then things started to come back, and when all of a sudden I told my wife, I said, you know what, I feel it. Right, I feel good. Yeah. Because I was safe, my wife and my family was safe. We did the things that we had to do to keep us safe. And then in the space that I was creating, I felt safe. And we used to go there and sit, and I was like, well, I said, if nobody come around, I said, they're going to have a spot to come look at some art.
Right.
Some COVID art.
Or you can lay out some nails on I-10 so people have to pull off. And
you can see me.
Sure.
If you're coming off I-10 and you take University, you can actually see us. It's the blue building. So I was lit. And my uncle, when his business went down, my uncle was an entrepreneur, and he was a survivor. He had many businesses. And his last business, he was a pastor. And he had a big cross in front of it, and his building was pink inside, and it was like, my wife has the video. I took the cross down, I put it on my shoulder, and it had a dumpster, and I was on University. I said, well, this is my testimony. And so I carried the cross, and I buried the cross, and You know, I rebirthed it, and you know, that's what we had to do to survive.
Absolutely.
And so now here I am and saying, hey, y'all, we here, we survived, so y'all come see what we got.
It is about survival. Attakapas Collective was birthed out of COVID because many of the artisans were home making crafts, making things, and COVID and the pandemic lasted way longer than any of us anticipated. So then they had all this stock, all of this product, and it's like, what do we do with it now? And so the shop has provided an outlet for them to showcase that work and to sell it. So there was some beauty even in such a very dark, ugly time for us. How about you, Cory?
So much about being an artist and a creative in general is understanding that feeling of need to, whether it's out of necessity to survive or necessity to explore your own ideas. Like just being an artist, to continually create art is having the feeling of, I just need to do it. If you're an artist and creating brings you the most fulfillment and that's your form of income, obviously you need to do it. You need to create art in order to sell, in order to live. With me, I have another job that's away from my art. For me, I create because I have to do it. Like I have an idea, and if I don't do it, then that idea is never going to come to fruition. So why did I have that idea at all? So I feel like any working artist just always has this feeling in them of, I need to do it. Like I have this idea, and I got to do it. So whether it's like survival or just getting something out of your head, that's a consistent thing for us.
So is there a vision of what success as, and I want to hear from each one of you creatively as an artist, is there an end game, a goal that you are reaching for? What does success look like for you, Bryant?
You know, I think I've answered that question so many times, and I've come up with a different answer.
Oh, it changes.
Each time, what success it means as an artist. Do we really think about end goals?
No.
Well, you're a community leader now. What does that mean?
To me, just doing anything is successful. Creating anything, just having one stroke of the brush, because I'm gonna have this constant battle of like, you don't need to be an artist. I do need to be an artist, but I feel like no one needs to be an artist. It's just that we have that drive that we feel like we need to be an artist. That's what pushes us. So far as like, what's a successful artist? It's like I'm doing something. Like I'm practicing or like I'm creating, but I don't even like to keep it in that rigid of a frame, because at another talk that I had here at the ACA, I got asked that question of what a successful artist might be, except it was to a bunch of college students. And I said, being a successful artist, to me, it doesn't always mean that you have to constantly be creating, because that gives a lot of them and people in general anxiety, particularly if you're in the artistic space. Oh, I wasn't able to paint today, I wasn't able to dance today, I wasn't able to create today. To me, a successful artist is someone who's always willing to invest in themselves, and that's what creates our art. So being successful artist that day might have been taking a walk that you really enjoyed and you thought about it and you had meditative time, or you read a book that was really, really enjoyable, because all that manifests into artwork. Staying plugged into the world and then seeing how the world affects us is how we create art. So to me, like being a successful artist means you invest in yourself. Mm-hmm. If you have the ability to invest in yourself, I think anyone will be a successful artist.
Can we consistently express ourselves and be current with it is a success. So in 20 years, can I still express the modern society with great impact and insight?
That's success to you.
Yeah, because I'm still growing with the society. Because right now I can tell the story about COVID and all of these different things through my eyes and be very, and make a point, make a statement. But in 20 years, a lot of people's fire is gone. Your creativity, but can I still be relevant? Can I make a statement that really inspires the youth? I know I can still reach the person I'm gonna be connected to the same age with me. But can I paint a painting that reached a 15-year-old and I'm 75? It's like, wow. And then because that's a connection. That means I can still see my community. That's a success story to me. So.
Leah?
That's a hard question for me because I don't really think about the end goal, or I'm just doing. Like when whatever's in here, I'm just gonna do it. And so I think just that ability to show up. I was telling that to a group of kids today. We did a yoga for young people at the center. And I told them, you showing up is the beginning of you being great, because there's a lot of people that didn't show up. Yeah. So I feel like showing up is success, because a lot of people don't show up.
That's true.
A lot of people don't show up because of fear, because of lack of confidence. So for me, showing up is success. Waking up every day and doing the work that you want to do, whatever that may be, is success. And yeah.
Thank you.
I agree with that. For me, success is when I think about my ancestors being slaves. That's one thing. I'm not a slave today. I'm free. Right. And in that freedom, that's just freedom. Like, okay, you're free, go figure it out. It's like got left. It's like you're not on the plantation, just go and figure it out, They didn't give you any wealth, they didn't give you anything, just leave, or stay and become a sharecropper. Wasn't really that many choices. So when I know I have my real freedom, what I didn't learn was financial freedom. That's what we're not really teaching in our community. And to me, that's where I'm in my success, is when I don't have to work for anybody else and I'm working for myself and I'm making my own brands, building my own name, building my own empire, making my own films, making my own art, and selling it and keeping a roof over my head. And that gives me like all the energy in the world, even though it's very difficult to have your own business because, there's no paycheck, there's no every week nothing.
Right.
You have to make all of that. And it's like, but I can wake up whenever I feel like it. I can go wherever I want to go when I want to go there, just as long as I have enough money to get somewhere, But the freedom of just being able to go in my other room and get on my computer. I tell the kids, I've spoken to them, like, if you got a phone, you got a computer, and you got a printer scanner, you have a business. Start with whatever you have right now. I got an extra room, and before it was just my bedroom, there was a desk, and I had my little stuff and a little file. But I was so like, I'm free at last, I'm not having to clock in on anybody. I'm not having to ask for permission to be able to have the day off or the week off because I want to go somewhere. I don't have to, you're not doing that right and be under somebody's thumb and walking on eggshells and because I've had plenty of jobs and I tell people I have a disability because I don't like it. I don't like working for other people at all. I like to work with people.
That's your disability.
I do the film festival. I know I'm the boss, but I got to pay for everything too.
You can't work, don't worry.
But me working for another person, it just does. I get sick on the first day. I'm like, I gotta go home. I'm sick. It's anxiety. It's like your first day. I'm like, I know. This something gonna go wrong over here. I got to go. And then I'm like, here's your key. Okay, and here's your badge. I can't. So that's to me my success. I want to do my Netflix series. There's other things. Like it's ever changing. Your creativities. I'm doing book illustrations now with my art. 2 of them are out. I want to do my own. I want to get my Netflix thing going on. My documentary is coming out in June. I have the film workforce training program with the kids and adults. So that's been fun. We've done it quarterly, and now we're on the final one in July out of 4 quarters. But like even with that, I brought that program here from Louisiana Entertainment, the cool cooperative in New Orleans. And after the second workshop, right, it's free for the kids and 16 and up. And I'm pulling out, I design all my flyers and I have people make them pretty. And so I'm pulling out the high school, I have them print my stuff and it helps the high school. So you wanna be in your community and help as many as you can. And so I'm pulling out the parking lot with 100 flyers, just printed. And they're like, "Hi Kelly, this is the Martin Luther King Center and we're closed now because there's mold." So I'm like, well, my program is coming the next month, what's gonna happen? Well, it looks like you gotta find another place. So then I had to scrap those flyers and, try to work with my graphic, and she was having mental issues, so I had to go to another person. He fixed it. And then now I got to get a new location, so now I've got the festival coming up. So it's like, oh my God, I got to do all of these things just to get this, and I'm not even getting paid for it. And then you can't have an attitude about that. It's like I asked the kids, "Would you want to do something for free?" And nobody raised their hands. And I said, "Oh, okay. How many of you guys would hire a person top dollar to do something they've never done before?" "Oh, no hands again." "Oh, that's funny because that's you. You have never done that." How am I going to hire you if you've never? So sometimes get on other people's set for free and do the best job you can do because they've already learned. They've already walked that path. So they're going to teach you skills that you might not learn in class. We're going to educate you on the real because the teacher can't tell you all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And that is the real path, is when you have your freedom, then you can go on people's sets and you can learn and educate yourself so that you can build your own brand and come out of there and take yourself to the next level.
So I'm hearing a lot that working with youth or being able to affect a younger generation is important. Why is that? Would anyone like to speak on that? Why is youth an important part of your creative process, reaching them?
Generic, the children are the future, literally.
So we've heard.
Yeah, they are the ones that are going to propel the world forward. And so I know when I'm older, I want very strong, wise, confident, very articulate people leading in this world, especially at a point where I can't anymore. The next community leaders, because the positions that we have now, we should not be in these positions forever. Right. The next generation should step in and do the work. And so we want to make sure they're prepared. And so pouring into them is important. The arts is important. Generic, the arts changes lives, because it does. All of these generic ideas of all of these different things are true. And so we need to, get more kids involved in the arts. We need to put a hand on them and make sure that we're mentoring them. I'm big on mentorship. I was very lucky and very blessed to have great parents. My mom, who's here. But I also had...
Go moms.
But I also had great mentors at a very young age.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, and so I know what the role that my mentors have played in my life. I know the significance of that. So being mentors to young people, that's significant, and making them understand and realize why it's important to have mentors. I had Walter Hall. I had Grace Hamilton, who's, a pillar in our community. Janice Smith in New Orleans when I was at Dillard. So just so many people. Lula Washington in D.C. In Los Angeles, just a lot of different people to kind of help and guide and mold me and gave me resources that were connectors, that connected me to, Lula Washington connected me to Sherelle Johnson at Howard University. Kids need that.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes they don't have those resources. Absolutely. And we do. And so we need to give them those opportunities. So it's extremely important. I'm all about youth development.
I love that. Growing up as a small young child in Lafayette, we always had leaders, whether they were in our church or in our neighborhood, and not necessarily artistic leaders, but I grew up always seeing that village, as they say, all around me. And I definitely feel the need to continue that torch. So maybe that's why, that's why we're seen as leaders, because we want to continue that legacy of being poured into and then pouring out to other people. But I think it's very necessary as well. Would you like to speak on that? As far as either one. I was looking at Cory, but he was looking at me. See, because Cory and I, just as a sidebar, he was the recipient of 2021's Art Spark grant as well. That's how we first were introduced to one another. I was also a recipient, and I did a songwriters youth workshop for young women in particular, because coming from small town Lafayette, and I moved to Los Angeles not knowing anybody, I had to navigate. There weren't any mentors out there, so I had to kind of figure it out on my own. And so what little that I learned, I felt a need to kind of give that back to some folks who might have similar interests as I do, that live here. So that's one of the reasons why I like to work with the youth, because of the fact that I feel like we could all use a little bit of help every now and again, especially our youth. We don't want them to be misguided or misdirected.
Because I am a mentor, but I'm not a nice mentor most of the time. Let me tell you, because I tell them when they're getting.
You tell them the really real.
And I'll be seeming real nice, and I make you a gumbo and some fried chicken wings, and I'll put some garlic bread, bring you to the house, and say this is what's going to happen. But I'm gonna make you accountable.
Oh yes.
You know, when I just spoke to the kids, the Dallas Scholars kids, and I had 10 nuggets of life lessons to give to them. But I started it off with, I'm not your mama and I'm not your daddy, okay? Because I'm getting ready to tell you some things that your teacher can't tell you, your mom and your dad is. Everybody's cuddling these kids. They're all in the university, and the teachers is acting like I'm like, why are you not putting these kids to task? We talked about this last night. They get on my set, they can't put a 2-piece, 3-piece together and this do that. They can't put something in the water, and it's like, is it too full? Is it too much, too little? It's like, are you still over there putting that water in the container, girl?
We got other stuff to do.
We have a whole event to do. And I'm like, when I say, because I've been in the business for 30 years on the real set in Hollywood, this ain't no joke. And the money it costs money, and they're gonna get rid of you quickly. Right. We ain't playing with nobody. And it's like, when you get on the set and you come on, and I tell you to go to the store, go get that sign across the street, because I want that one, and you get a bag of ice. And the boy comes back with a bag of ice. What? Now I gotta go and get it. You know what I'm saying? And when we're packing up, and there's 2 of them. And I said, well, okay, take the ice off of that, that little container with the sodas and stuff. We're gonna take it to the theater. Okay, you hearing what I'm saying? Okay, and they're in the back, right? So I drive off, I'm up, get on to the next set, and I'm open the trunk. I'm like, where is that cooler? They done left it on the ground. Both of them looking at my face. yeah, okay. And I'm like, boy, you ain't ready for none of this. You can't remember 2 out of 2 things. You can only remember one of them, and you just graduated from what university, and they just let you go? And they didn't give you no kind of task to learn to that. You come on this set, or any set, especially if you go into Hollywood. Oh my God, I told them, you know what, you might not want to do this business, really. I'm gonna help you. And you over here on my set trying to get to know, the people from Louisiana Entertainment, trying to know Kirby. I'm like, guess what, the reference comes through me. And you just jacked up my whole set, you wasn't ready. And then when I'm like, we're passing each other to go, we're at the School of Math, Science, and Arts, we're at the theater. I'm like, okay, well, some more stuff is in the car. And they're like, oh, we're getting ready to go and check into our hotel room. Oh, really? The last one this year was talking about she needed to go get a breakfast bar, and her mom needed to go together. I'm like, both of y'all need to get a breakfast bar? I mean, like, does Anna have enough energy to get out the car and help me with these couple of boxes? We're only setting up one table. I made it really easy. She goes, not until I have something to eat. Oh, you know what? what? Go get something to eat then. Bye. I was mad. And the mom is like, Kelly, can I talk to you? I'm like, you can talk to me while I'm putting this stuff on this table and, setting up this table. Because she wanted to stop me. She thought she had the power to stop me in my tracks so she could talk to me about her sensitivity about how I just talked to her daughter. I'm not even there for your sensitivities either. When you come on my set, be ready to go to work. This ain't no game. This is not for fun. But what I find that when people volunteer and they come on your set they're not there for me. They want to meet my directors. They want their daughter to be in the movie or the next one. So they use my opportunity, and then they just move me out the way. But how are you doing, though? And I'm like, isn't there, the table still needs to get set up? Where's the red carpet?
Weren't you supposed to be getting nice?
But it was like, it's 10 o'clock. Right. And if you didn't eat by now, and I told him, I said, you're coming from my actors work camp. Okay, this is a workforce training program. You asked to be on my set. This is not the business. I said in front of her mom and her, this is not the business, y'all. So if you're going to be in my class, in the first class, the twins, they couldn't even come back because they didn't come back to the second one. I said, your word is not bond. Now you can't come back. I don't care if it's free or not. You can't come back because I'm not going to hire you and Kirby's not going to hire you.
So there's a need to hold the youth accountable.
And know how to work. Because everybody want to show up on sets for fun. They want to look all cute and stuff, and you got on the wrong shoes. You got on the wrong outfit to come. Well, I'm at business. I'm picking up 10-foot tables, rolling out the 8-foot ones, stacking up chairs, the 9, putting out. I'm hot, I'm sweating, and then people roll up, Kelly, you look like so crazy. Well, if you was here to help me, I probably wouldn't be looking half as messed up right now. But they leave. Like he went, we're going to go check into our hotel room. Well, when tourism comes by, the director's one of my top ones. She's like, where are the signs? Where is this? I'm like, Arlene, they left to check in their hotel room. Can you believe it? And everybody's failure is my failure. And I take my business real serious, and I will kick you off my set. You can come back to me next year, and I probably don't even talk to you anymore for the rest of my life sometimes. I'm just like that. Because it takes me a month to get over the festival, all the failures. Because the first thing somebody's going to come at you, you know what? And I'm talking to the kids in the theater, and then they're out there. They felt that it was unorganized because it was such a packed place. And she goes, your sponsors really look at that. It didn't look quite organized. And I'm like, oh my God, I was in another room. How come these people from the theater, they can handle all of that on their own? So every reflection, every ball drop with tourism, where's the signs? We didn't know how to get there. Now, when somebody's giving you a $1,500 check, that's the last thing you want them to be is like, where do I go? Why wasn't it handled, Kelly, when you have a year to plan? It's because the people that you let on your ship, they're not ready, they're not there for you, and so you gotta be as critiquing as possible. Now, I told her the next round, I'm hiring a manager, and I'm only gonna hire service companies. No more friends, no more volunteers, no more interns. Why? Because after each year of doing this, I never feel that they're really genuinely there for me. They're not really trying to be there to go to work. And carrying these tables and stuff is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
No joke.
Cory, do you work with youth? Do you feel an obligation or need to work with youth or mentor them in your art?
It's funny, like a lot of times I feel like the youth.
Your inner child?
A little bit of a complicated question. And I haven't really explored that much when it comes to what Acadiana Black can do with the generation under me. And I guess that's mainly due to part because a lot of the volunteers that I do work with are like college students and just coming into it. But what did pop in my head when it comes to what I hope my work has done and how it will affect the youth is Black representation here is an idea, and I hope that idea continues on to where it becomes more and more concrete. I feel like starting Acadiana Black was just the first step of that idea, and then hopefully more and more people, youth, take on that idea and turn it to be something real. One of the more profound things that I reflected on in my Acadiana Black journey was, do y'all know what the state song of Georgia is? It's Ray Charles's Georgia on My Mind. And that's great, but Ray Charles was banned from Georgia. Ray Charles grew up in a very, very segregated, racist Georgia, and somehow in the midst of that, he was still able to write Georgia on My Mind, singing about the praises of Georgia, the place that he couldn't even play at a concert at. I was like, why is that? Why was I doing that? And I felt, connected in that journey, because here at the time, like I said, started Acadiana Black. There was a lot of intensity in the region and just all across the country. But here I was making this flag, waving this flag around, that's really centered around love for this place, this city, this region. Similar to how Ray Charles is able to sing about how much he loves Georgia, I was able to wave a flag that symbolizes love for Acadiana and Lafayette and its Black people. So I hope that idea is taken more to youth, because when Ray Charles made that song, he probably wasn't thinking about me and Lafayette, Louisiana. I hope that the Acadiana Black Pride flag and Acadiana Black has the same effects of, like, I can affect someone that may not even be born yet.
Thank you. I think we're almost at the time for some questions. Is that correct? I'd like to ask one more question, though, from the panel before we open it up to everyone here. What can institutions like ACA do to help make a rich future for BIPOC artists such as yourself? We'll just go down the line. So, Bryant, what would you like to see?
Just more opportunities to show, fill up this studio, this space with art, and show what we have. I mean,
do you feel like that need is being met?
It's a lot of hurdles, and sometimes if you don't have certain credentials, you get passed by. You have to get introduced, and if you don't know the right people, it's a lot of red tape. But if we're going to promote the community, you got to look for the community,
right?
And we're here. I mean, I've been having a gallery for 10 years, so the art is there. The history is there. So we just have to open it up, let it show. I mean, we all doing our thing. We're not asking. We're doing it.
Exactly.
So just invite us. We're here.
Thank you. Cory?
Well, one, I'm glad that we're all here today.
Absolutely.
That's definitely a lot of steps in the right direction, and shows that there is some attention paid to it. I think, as far as like ACA and all the other kind of major art spaces in our region and our state, it just takes intentionality. Like, unfortunately, we haven't reached the point yet where diversity just happens. You have to be intentional about it, particularly when you're talking about spaces that have been so rigid in one kind of way for so long. So I think being intentional, and what this intentionality means is, like, we gotta have talks like this. Like, we gotta have panels that are centered towards BIPOC people, regardless of the naysayers of, like, why would you do that? Like, why would you have a black-centered focus? Paying attention to, like, important months, when Black History Month comes around, what are your art centers doing then? When the Asian American Month comes around, and Hispanic, like, observing how our spaces are paying attention to times when we're supposed to be celebrating diversity within our communities, and what are they doing to that? Because, bottom line is they have to be proactive. Being proactive of showing BIPOC artists at any time, especially times that they need to show them.
Thank you. Leah?
Yeah, I think just going off of what he said, just having that intention, having more forums like this, more panels like this. I think just coming into the community. ACA staff has come to Park Village. Sam has been to Park Village a few times, and have brought some other individuals in as well. But I think continuing to come, to leave that center downtown area and come within the community, I think that's continuing to do that. I think that's important.
This is a great panel, and I think when you bring all different creatives together, that's the mark right there, you know. We have filmmakers, you know, dance, I used to dance, I just do ballet. But artists, you know. And when we all get together, there's magic, you know, because then I'm like, you know, I like you, I want to see what's up with you, I want to see how I can work with you, I want to see what I can get with your kids. And then we start collaborating. We start seeing what's up with the other. Then this is only 4 of us.
Right.
Well, you know, with you, I'm my artist in your store. So right here, we're already connecting, gonna connect. Just think if this whole room was filled with only filmmakers and artists and dancers and all that. I used to do house parties in my apartment. That's what I felt like God had. You know, what my first company is Arts and Minds Productions. That's my production. And he said, open the door and set the table. And I'm like, who are you talking to? You. And I had a 1-bedroom apartment, and that's what I did so I can cook. So I started making all the good food, and I have, you know, like my friend is a director come and show his short, and I'd have popcorn and all the stuff you get at the movies. And then I'd have, my girlfriend was singing American Idol, so we had like Christmas parties, so she brought Sanjay, all the American Idol guys up in there. We had all that with gumbo. And so I just started opening up my home to my creatives. And, you know, at first Arnold didn't want to come and show everybody his movie. He's like, I'm sick. I'm like, you better get over here because I made all this food. You better get here. That's what I do know. And so he showed up, but, you know, he wound up showing the film like 5 times. He really got into it. And my friends were like, Kelly, why are you letting all these people come to your house? You live here. You're a single woman. I said, I just felt like God told me to open the door and set the table. And when I was, you know, driving down the street, I just was turning by Parkway Cinema. And here's the Lord speaking to me again. He's like, okay, it's time for you to do the film festival. And I said, well, what do I call it? Natchitoches Film Festival? He's like, no. And I was like, Cane River Film Festival? And I'm just passing the theater. And he's like, yeah. I was like, okay. So I went and got the mayor, and I'm like, hey, the next thing, next level. And they're like, what? Cane River Film Festival. By the time I go and tell the Historic District Development president, he's like, I already know, Cane River Film Festival. I was like, oh, God dang, it's only the second person I told. So, you know, you just can't. Whatever is in your heart to do, even if it starts off really small, gotcha. You know, you start bringing the people from your community into that place, and then it grows. And like when I came out here, I would find the lieutenant governor and the governor and all the ones, and you start bringing those guys. The lieutenant governors come to 2 of my balls, and then now you got power behind you, and then that's when you start becoming more successful because your level. And the people that know you, they're like, people can talk to the lieutenant governor. He's like, oh, Kelly is my girl. Kelly's anything Kelly needs, she got my cards. And I call him. I'll be like, you know what, I need this to happen. And it happens, you know what I'm saying? Because that's when you start becoming a real leader, because you start making yourself powerful. Mm-hmm. You don't discount yourself. You don't be like, oh, I don't know how to ask people for stuff. I don't want to know. I'm doing everything on my own. You know, I don't want nobody to help me. No, I need all of that, and I'm going to ask, and I'm going to seek, and I'm going to knock on the door until it opens, and that's how you get it in.
Well, we want to thank ACA, Jaik, Sam, for opening up your home, opening up your tables to allow us to speak. Thank you.